About 5 years ago, I lived in downtown in a major city in the US. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go on long walks and spend the night thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I have always used to joke around with my roommate that even the drug dealers in the city were polite. But all of that changed just a few minutes of one evening. It was Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning. I was walking near a police patrolled car quite a few ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back into my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was a silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding that he was probably drunk, I stepped close to try not to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass by me. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky and was wearing an old suit. He danced closer still until I could make out his face. His eyes were wide and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth formed a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took off my eyes off of him to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back, then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing with one foot on the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about a half a block between us. As I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me, the street and the sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, and I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest moments, I felt relieved until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and the shadows, but I was still certain he was facing me. I had looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time, staring at him, and then he started moving towards me again. He looked giant, exaggerated tiptoe steps, as if he were a cartoon character, sneaking up on someone. Except he was moving very, very quickly. I like to say at this point I ran away or pulled out my pepper spray or cell phone or anything at all, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen as a smiling man crept towards me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling his smile, still looking into the sky. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What I meant to ask was, "What do you want?" In an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whisper. "What?" Regardless of whatever or not, humans can smell fear. They could certainly hear it. I then hear it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there smiling. And then after what felt like forever, he turned around very slowly and started to dance, walking away. And just like that, not wanting to turn my back on him again. I just watched him go until he was far enough away to almost be out of sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor he was dancing. I watched him in horror as the distant shape of him growing and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off the side road and back onto a better road with the sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I just kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see the stupid smile, but he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night and never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He looked completely and utterly insane, and that's a very, very scary thing to see. And that, my little pretties, was The Smiling Man, a creepypasta written by Blue Title. My final thoughts on this story? I remember Mr. Haunton narrated this story, I believe, sometime in 2017. Yeah, I remember Mr. Haunton narrated this story in 2017, and I was able to listen to someone, who animated the story of his narration of it on YouTube. I just can't remember what channel it was from, but I remember it was from one channel. I also do remember seeing, a lot of people narrating this story, and it's a very popular creepypasta, as well as a bunch of other ones. This one was definitely a really good story. I mean, the fact of this man smiling creepily and all that, I mean, that's pretty frightening, to be honest. I mean, I can honestly shit myself, if I were to see something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, most of you guys probably know that, this story actually exists. Now, I have seen some other stories that were just messed up as this, but I honestly can see a lot of potential in a story like this. I mean, this story, the author of the story, Blue Title, though, it did a great job with the story. Like, I'm not gonna lie right now, this story was pretty well done, especially with the whole concept. I like the storyline behind it all. I liked how well made the story was. So the author of the story should be proud of himself or herself for making such a beautiful, good story. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest. I actually heard of this story from a couple narrators, and I really think Shadow Reader should go ahead and narrate this story because honestly think he'll like it. And if you guys want to narrate a story, I recommend you narrate this one. This one is a pretty well made story for how well made it is, especially with the good concept in that. So, with that being said, yeah, this is simply my own personal opinion on this story, and this is just my own opinion. If you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of the story is a 10 out of 10. I mean, this is honestly a really great classic creepypasta. It's definitely well made, and it's definitely one of the great, popular classic creepypastas in the world. I mean, I've seen other ones, but I have to say this story is pretty something. So, I definitely would have to say the author of the story, I really think he or she needs to be, proud of him or herself for making such an excellent, well made story. So, anyways, I mean, with that being said, and with that being the case, I'm going to sit here and say, what did you guys think about this story? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're new to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.